Hey there YouTube, I'm Joe, you're watching Ink&Iron, and we are finally getting around to the review of the Spyderco Yojimbo 2 pocket knife. If you like this video, hit like, and for more content from me, feel free to subscribe. Let's go to the tabletop. Welcome to the tabletop review of the Spyderco Yojimbo 2. First things first, I'm going to give you some statistics. So those are all the measurements that I took personally on this exact blade. Your mileage may vary. I'd like to touch on the philosophy of use first of all. So this knife is designed by Michael Janich. He worked with Spyderco to create a self-defense tool, and that is the primary use of this design. Michael Janich pioneered the Wharncliffe in use in self-defense blades, and I can see it. I can see the point. Literally, look how significantly thin and delicate this tip is. It is super penetrating. Like, let's take a piece of paper here. Yeah. See how it just plunges in there? Very cool. So, primary use self-defense, although I'm going to make the argument today that this is an excellent EDC knife. It all begins with the blade steel. This is CPM S30V, Spyderco's probably most used steel for their higher end knives, and I quite like it. So let's talk about how they've ground this S30V blade. It comes down from almost a 4mm thickness to about 22 thousandths behind the edge, which is 0.57 millimeters. It is very thin behind the edge. This was actually a candidate for my knife shaving video, link in description. But yeah, this is probably my biggest knife that comes down to the finest edge. As you can see, there is a curvature here in the hollow grind that helps to take this enormous thickness down to a very thin razor-like edge. And the straight nature of this blade makes it extremely easy to sharpen and to maintain. If you are buying this as a self-defense tool and you don't own any other knives, this will be very easy for you to learn to sharpen and maintain, which is a huge bonus for people who are coming into using knives from a self-defense aspect. Let's talk about the lockup. Lockup is very solid. There is maybe a little bit of side-to-side play that I can feel. Can't really hear it though. This is a compression lock, and so it has very good vertical rigidity. The action on this blade is very smooth, although I will say as it's coming back in, it intrudes on your finger space. So you can see I can't quite close it all the way with my finger in there. So you just have to make sure as you're flicking it in and out that you get your finger out of there in time to let it close all the way. This isn't going to look as smooth as it is because I'm working under a camera about 4 inches away. Trust me when I say this knife drops shut like a little guillotine. You can see it here. Overall length on this blade is just under 3.5 inches, which I appreciate living in Colorado. My legal limit is 3.5 inches before I have a felony in my pocket. Given the solid lockup and the good action, now you're wondering how this performs in a slicing roll. Well, let me just show you. Got a little piece of newspaper here. So the way you're going to want to use this blade is from the heel to the tip, at least in my experience. You're just lightly slicing, and honestly, this knife works best if you keep whatever you're working on in this region of the knife, this hollow ground portion. As you get up here, it starts to bind up in the cut. Let me show you. Easy, easy, and now we're getting harder as we're starting to wedge that thick steel into the cut. This isn't a deal breaker because, like I said, if you are traveling from the heel to the tip and staying under this very thick stock, you're going to have a fine time getting through most of your EDC materials: rope, cardboard, paper, tape, all that kind of stuff. No problem. And it takes a very keen edge with that S30V. Getting a little ripping and tearing here. Definitely takes a good edge and performs well as long as you know how to use it. The design of this knife is such that you should be gripping it like this with your thumb on the backside and then you can maintain that very slashy, slicey movement very easily and very comfortably. I have about a medium-sized hand, and you can see the scallops here kind of lead your fingers into an approximate position. I think they are wide enough that it's not like you are completely locked in here. You can choke back on this knife if you need to, although I wouldn't really recommend it with this thin little tail on the backside. And quick note, quick aside, there is no lanyard hole. So if you're a lanyard person, sorry, you're kind of out of luck on this blade. So that kind of transitions into the discussion about the handle. These are G10 slabs. They are actually milled out, so you can see that there is steel in there as well. However, it is nested into the G10, which is a very nice bit of engineering on Spyderco's part. Otherwise, this would have been much, much thicker, and yeah, it kind of maintains the same thickness as about a PM2, which is really nice. The construction, of course, it's Spyderco, so it's top-notch. Screws are all flush. If I had to complain about anything, I think it would be this clip. I do enjoy that this clip is positionable in all four orientations, so you can go tip up, tip down on the right side, or tip down, tip up on the left side. So that makes this somewhat ambidextrous. However, the clip kind of gets in the way of this cutout right here on the handle, so this looks like it's supposed to make the blade more comfortable to hold. You can see the clip is interacting with my hand right around the same region here. And this is true in tip up or tip down, right or left side. So I'm not really sure why we went with this standard Spyderco clip. Maybe they could have shortened it to like here or so, and that would have kept it out of your sort of finger range when you're gripping the knife normally. Not really sure what that's about. Might not be a huge deal for you, but it's something I wanted to point out. So I'm always concerned with whether or not a knife is usable with your left hand, and I will say it's okay. It feels a lot like the Paramilitary 2 in my non-dominant left hand. That being said, when you move the clip to the other side for a left side carry, it does help with the left-handed action because it gives you something to grab onto on the backside and disengage that lock. So if you are used to using a Spyderco compression lock left-handed, you won't have a problem with this knife. If you are using this as a weak side carry, maybe you carry a firearm or something like that, this might give you some trouble, especially when you're training with this as a self-defense tool. So now that we're getting to the end here, I'm going to do some size comparisons and talk about price point. Here's a Para 3 and a Paramilitary 2 to start. So I got this knife for 50 bucks, which for 50 bucks, this is an absolute steal. The only way I did that, as you can see by this notch here, is I got it at the Spyderco second sale. So these are knives with blemishes that they sell at a discount at their factory. You actually have to show up, you can't do it online. For 50 bucks, this knife is incredible. The retail price, at least as far as Spyderco sees it, is $216 right now. You are probably going to find it for sub $200 at most of your regular knife retailers. Spyderco likes to sell things at their MSRP. So for $216, that's pretty steep for this blade. I think you can get a whole lot of blades for that kind of money. And so I'm not sure if I wholeheartedly recommend it at the MSRP price. Open L number 8. Here's a Victorinox 91mm. At 216 bucks, I would recommend that price if you are using this as a last-ditch self-defense item. If you are partnering this with a firearm or some other means of protecting yourself, I think $216 is well worth your life. That being said, if you are just a normie like me and using it for an EDC purpose, I probably wouldn't pay more than about 150 bucks for this knife. Ultimately, my price point conclusion is if you are putting your life on the line with this knife, yeah, totally worth it. If you are going to use it casually like I am, maybe try and find it on the secondary market or try and get it at the Spyderco second sale. That would be my ultimate recommendation to you. Okay, and that's about everything I have to say about the Spyderco Yojimbo 2. Thank you for joining me today. I have had fun carrying this again for the review, and if you have suggestions of knives you want to see reviewed on my channel, please drop your ideas in the comments. I just put out a full knife collection video for my folding knives. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check out that video and, you know, tell me something you want to see reviewed for my greater collection. Okay, I've been Joe. You've been watching Ink&Iron. Thank you for joining me. Hit like, subscribe, go to my Patreon if you want to support the channel. All right, I'll catch you on my next video, people. Bye-bye.